Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Blade. We're here with the analysis or guide, if we want to call it. We're going to take a look at Blade, his whole kit, how he operates, how he works, if he's good, if he's bad, if he's terrible, if he's dog water. We're going to take a look at all that, builds, artifacts, or not even artifacts, what are they called? Relics, light cones, all that stuff, a bit of team composition, and then final closing thoughts. So with that, let's get into it. Starting off, his normal attack is not important, at least not yet. So we're just going to skip over his normal attack. It's a regular single target hit. But once we get down to his skill, Hellscape, Blade will consume a percentage of his max HP to immediately advance action forward by 100%. Essentially, he has another turn. And in addition, damage increases by 12. And his normal attack, Shard Sword, which is his regular attack, is enhanced to Forest of Swords for 3 turns. Hellscape cannot be used while the Forest of Swords is still active. If Blade's HP will reach 0 upon using this ability, which obviously if he's at essentially like I think roughly below 30, then you use Hellscape, you'll be just placed at 1 HP, and the skill does not generate energy. This is now where we go back to the normal attack and say, the normal attack is important. So baseline, his normal attack is unimportant, but his skill makes his basic attack very, very prominent and very good. Essentially, like something like a Hu Tao for those who want a bit of a comparison between Hoyoverse games. Now, one thing to note though, standalone, his normal attack is a single target ability. It just hits one enemy. When you do use Hellscape, it does become a cleave of 3 enemies, 1 middle with 2 adjacent. It does become like that, which is a very handy and very nifty thing to know, so you can abuse it once you have the character. But standalone, his skill is just a small little boost to himself. It's nothing too crazy, it doesn't have anything else. But do remember that it does not generate energy, so you have to generate energy through using his actual normal attack. This one doesn't do it, and also you can't use the skill again after you've used it now until 3 turns have passed, and essentially your normal attack is back to being Shard Sword. So, generally speaking, pretty streamlined, pretty straightforward, but pretty powerful to the day. Going on to his ultimate though, Death Sentence, deal a percentage of Blade's attack plus a percentage of his max HP as wind damage to an enemy singular, and then a percentage of his attack and a percentage of his max HP as wind damage to adjacent targets. His ultimate is, in fact, a little bit of a cleave attack ability as well, which is always handy. He's a destruction character, so that's what he is. So he has that ability to do single target and AoE damage. Additionally, you set Blade's current HP to 50% of his max HP. This part, it's a bit unclear what exactly it means. You set your HP to 50% of his max. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by set, but if you're above, I believe you go down, and if you're below, you may go up in HP. If you do, that's cool, but it's probably an irrelevant piece of information to heal yourself or do whatever, because you're most likely going to be running a healer with the character. Now, going on to his talent, Shuhu's Gift. Every time he takes damage, Blade gains 1 charge stack for 3 turns, stacking up to 5 times. Very good. When the maximum charge stack is reached, consume all charges and immediately unleash a follow-up attack on all enemies in the arena, dealing 21% of Blade's attack plus 54% of his HP loss while stacking charges as wind damage, and then restore Blade's HP by 30% of his max. Simply put, an easy way to look at it is that this is like Himiko's follow-up attack, but instead of triggering when you shield break, it triggers per stack you gain when Blade gets attacked, which is quite easy, quite simple. Blade will be getting attacked most likely if you kind of place him correctly in your position. I recommend placing him in the middle, so the chance of him getting hit are very high. And then you just trigger a follow-up attack every 5 times he's been hit. It's very good, and you also get a bit of a heal, which is always handy. It's not going to be super important, the heal, but it's kind of like in a clutch situation. If Blade is the last unit alive, it's pretty good because the guy's got a lot of stuff in his kit that can help him do a lot of things. But moving downwards to the traces, the core traces, I'm not going to be looking at minor ones. Just looking at the core traces, Cyclone of Destruction, wind damage dealt by his talons, follow-up attack is increased by 15%. It's not that great, to be quite fair with you. It's just a flat 15% damage increase to the follow-up attack, which is not too core of a part of his kit, but sure, go for it. I'm not really too fussed about that. Have fun. T2, Dead and Back Again. When Blade hits an enemy with a weakness break using Forest of the Swords, which is his upgraded normal attack, he restores HP by 10% of his max plus 80. He heals a fair bit when you hit a weakness broken enemy. That's pretty good. I'll be honest, that's a lot more useful, in my opinion. Could be slightly better, because you will be comboing him again with a healer, most likely. Again, good for those small situations where you're going to be by yourself if Blade is the last unit alive and you need kind of like a carry. It's going to be pretty good there, but because you're going to be running him with a healer, the chances that it's going to be super useful is pretty low, but still, nonetheless, useful. And then last one, T3, Endless Lifespan. If Blade's HP is 50% or lower, incoming healing is increased by an additional 20%. That's fine. He gets healed a little bit more if he's below 50% HP. It probably also applies to his own healing, so that 10% from T2 plus 80 turns into like 20% more. I'm not going to do the maths, but it's pretty cool. It's overall, these traces aren't like, I would say, anywhere near overpowered or anywhere near like super broken, but they are nice handy things to have. Self-heal, healing increase, and a small damage boost to his talent. I think at least T1 could have been changed to maybe something a bit more utility-wise, like, I don't know, whenever you consume HP or HP is lost, get a certain stacking effect, like, I don't know, maybe crit rate or something, or, I don't know, something nifty like that, but a wind damage increase to talent, fine. It is what it is. Pretty good so far, and standalone, his kit is pretty good. I think you're getting a really good character, and the reason for that is because, well, there's not too many wind characters in the game right now, so even if you just do get this character as of right now, which is patch 1.2, when he obviously releases, I think you're in a very good position. If you're watching this video in the future, and you're wondering there's a lot of wind characters now, he'll probably be outscaled by someone, but still, generally speaking, HP scaling characters, HP consumption characters, and characters that have a lot of stuff in their kit, like adjacent damage, follow-up attack, HP healing, they're usually very good, just by general Hoyoverse themes, and so he's probably a very solid unit standard alone. But as per usual, he's upgraded with constellations. And so let's take a look at those. Making myself a bit smaller so we can all see the text. Starting off with his Eidolons, I previously called them constellations. My apologies to all the HSR fans, my absolute apologies. But starting off with his Eidolons, E1, rejected by death, infected with life. During the battle, every time Blade's HP goes lower than 50%, max HP is increased by 20, stacks up to 2 times. A rather interesting constellation or Eidolon, my apologies again. A rather interesting one, a bit of a mid-battle damage boost as well as a survivability boost. Looking at it from this perspective, because he does scale a lot of his damage from HP, you are getting a bit of a damage boost. 20% times, stacked up to 2 times, 40% max HP increase technically. Very, very powerful. His E1, although not going to be a must-have, it's just a stat increase. It's actually a really good stat increase in a very interesting and nifty way. So, E1, very cool, very powerful, but not a must-have, but still very good. E2, Missed Dreams and Countless Regrets, while Forest of Swords is active, which is his upgraded normal attack. If Blade's HP is restored, his next attack's damage increases by 15. This effect stacks up to 3 times. A bit of an interesting one. Again, a nifty way of getting a damage bonus. So you have to restore, HP with Blade, and then his next attack damage increases by 15%. You can get a total of 45% from this, which is quite good. Now, you definitely can heal about 3 times if you really try. You can do it. Mainly, the easiest way to do it with Luocha, he's going to be the easiest way, because Luocha, when he has his heal thing active, everyone else's normal attacks or attacks will then heal everyone, and so you're going to be able to easily get that. So there are ways to get this very easily. Can you get all 3 stacks with just himself in the party? Most likely not, because obviously his attack will trigger a heal when he heals below a certain HP. But then obviously you'll use that stack, so you won't be able to get the 45%. But generally speaking, having a almost constant 15% damage increase on your next attack is pretty good. To a maximum of 45% is always great. Moving swiftly onwards, E3 is Ultimate +2 as well as Talent +2, which is always useful. And then going on to E4, Ultimate Sword, Hidden Hell. When using his ultimate, if Blade's HP is above 50%, deal 100% of the HP caused by the ultimate to the enemy and adjacent targets as additional wind damage, which is, you just deal more damage, 100% of the HP caused. I believe there's a bit of a typo here, HP healed, essentially, I believe it is, or the HP set, when, you know, that little set thing, set HP to 50%, the difference of what you changed from, deal that 100% of that as additional damage, which is quite useful, quite handy, but you have to be above 50%. And the one thing I want to point out now that we're on this one is that the only caveat that I'll say, or the only maybe negative part about Blade, is that there's a lot of discrepancy between being below and being above 50% HP. Now, the reason I want to say that there might be a problem is that it's putting your eggs in too many baskets. I'll use that analogy. You're kind of splitting your power or your style of play in different areas, and you're not going to be specifically in one playstyle. So he has small bonuses, above 50, and then he has small bonuses below 50, instead of having just all bonuses below or all bonuses above. So that's the only part that I could probably see being, it's not going to be a problem, I should say, but it's going to be a bit of a odd thing having to know if you're above or below, and then maybe the bonuses aren't quite equal. Maybe being below is a lot better than being above, and so, you know, the weight, if you will. But regardless, E4 is quite good additional damage when you use the set HP thing from your ultimate. E5 is a skill plus 3. I'm not sure if that's true, but skill is being leveled up, and so is his basic attack, so that's always useful. And then E6, body and soul, which I find to be a very useful one for those who are going for the E6 blade. E6 is, utility-wise, extremely powerful. So, going on to it, when struck by a killing blow, instead of becoming incapacitated, Blade's HP is reduced to 1, and his talent is immediately triggered, which is the follow-up attack that heals you for 30%, so you're not at 1 anymore. This effect can only be triggered once every 3 turns. Essentially, every Blade has a 3-turn revive. So, it's pretty powerful, really good. Now, generally speaking, not actually useful, generally speaking, right? In a general sense, if everyone on your team is alive and you're kind of going strong, not that useful. But if it's in a dire situation, the shit's hit the fan, there's everything everywhere, Blade's the last one alive, and you can kind of keep him up by himself with just the self-healing that he has, you can essentially have an infinite DPS, which is, I'm not complaining about an infinite DPS. So E6, very powerful. Now, I generally like to recommend, if you're going to go for his Eidolons, where would be the best value? And simply put, best value would probably be E1, E2, and that's about it. His ultimate, again, I don't know if it's a core part of his kit. I don't want to say that it is, but E1 and E2 are super high value for being the first 2 Eidolons. Once you get to E4, you might be losing a bit of value because it's not overly great, and a bit of that discrepancy about above HP and below 50% HP. So E4, you lose a bit of value. E5 obviously is the level up of the skill, which is, I think, a part of his core kit. And then E6 is obviously a utility piece, a very good utility piece, but again, no raw percentage increase. So E1 and E2 are probably his best value Eidolons. Now, going on to the Lycones, as per usual, obviously his signature, the unreachable side, is going to be his best in slot. Universally, increase HP by 16% and attack by 16%. Damage when attacking is increased by 30%, and follow-up attacks is increased by 30%. Universally, and just generally speaking, and specifically speaking, all kinds of ways of speaking, his signature is going to be his best, but the other 2 5-stars are still really, really good. If you have something irreplaceable, it's absolutely fine. Increases the wearer's attack by a certain percentage. It is a 24% at standard, so it's a bit higher than the unreachable side. But when the wearer defeats an enemy or is hit, immediately restore HP, so he has a bit more healing to keep himself alive. And at the same time, the wearer's damage is increased by 24% again until the end of their next turn. This effect cannot stack and can only trigger 1 time per turn. Generally speaking, something irreplaceable is also really, really good for him. Now, if you don't manage to get the unreachable side, that's the one I'm going to recommend. But again, even the free one on the Fall of an Aeon is still really good. Now, this one you can get for free if you're just grinding the simulated universe every single week, getting all the tokens. You can get this one up to refinement 5, what's it called? Superimposition 5, very easily as long as you are constantly grinding it. And what does that mean? Well, whenever the wearer attacks, their attack is increased by a certain percentage, 8 at the low end, 16 at the high end. In this battle, up to 4 times, so you can get 4 stacks of this attack boost, which is very, very good. 16 times 4, very high number. I believe it's 64. Don't quote me on the exact maths there. When the wearer inflicts weakness break on the enemy, the wearer's damage increases by 8 further percentage, 12 at the low end, 24 at the high end. So really good overall 5 stars. All of them are usable. Again, his signature will most likely be his best because it gives you more scaling stats, HP, attack, and then raw damage increase. But the other 2 are just fine. The difference between them will be a few percentages in the high end, essentially. But even then, if you don't manage to have any of these 5 stars, somehow if you don't have On the Fall of an Aeon, I'm questioning what you're doing. But if you don't have any of these either, well, 4 stars are also absolutely fine. These 4-star light cones do the job as well. There is one, a Wolf Walk Time. That one is not good. I would not recommend using a Wolf Walk Time. But all of these are fine. Now, I didn't write the specifics down of what they do, but they are all, generally speaking, attack boosts or small damage boosts in some way, shape, or form that persist throughout the whole fight. Obviously, if we remember, R-Lance is based on HP and loss of HP, so that one will be quite good for Blade. But all of them have very simplistic attack boost, damage boost, this boost, maybe a bit of healing, I believe, on one of them. They are all really good. So don't be afraid to use any of the destruction light cones. They are all just fine for Blade. Going on to his little bit of a relic situation here. For relics, I've got 2 options here that are probably usable. Eagle of Twilight Line and Longevous Disciple. These are the 2 relics that you're most likely to be, going to end up using, depending on kind of how you're feeling. If you're looking for high investment, you're probably going to go for Longevous Disciple because that is 2 set increase HP by 12%. Which is more scaling, and then 4 set, when the wearer is hit or their HP is consumed, their crit rate is increased by 8% for 2 turns, max 2 stacks, to a total of 16% crit rate boosting. If you're looking for like the min-maxy side of things, Longevous Disciple will most likely be your best one because it lets you do a lot of crit rate boosting and maybe get a certain percentage of crit rate, which will go in line with the planar ornaments that I'll get into in just a second. If you're looking for just a generic damage boost, Eagle of Twilight Line is fine. Increase wind damage by 10% after the wearer uses an ultimate. Advance action forward by 25. So that one's just a really generic one. I don't think it's going to be his best in slot. If it is, it's because of the wind damage. It's not because of the actual 4 set. So my recommendation for those who are looking for his best in slot, Longevous Disciple, which is releasing with 1.2, so there's not going to be some sort of stock that you might have been able to do or pre-farm. The difference between these 2 in terms of performance will be, again, very minute in the long run. As for the planar ornaments, my apologies, my nose is a bit stuffy right now. Inert Cell Soto and Rutilant Arena are going to be my 2 recommendations. Again, Rutilant Arena is releasing in 1.2, so no pre-farm for that. But Inert Cell Soto, 2 set increase the wearer's crit rate by 8%, which is great. And then when the wearer's crit rate reaches 50% or higher, the wearer's ultimate and follow-up attack damage increases by 15%. He has both of those things. Mr. Blade has an ultimate and a follow-up attack, so you're getting massive value from just being at 50% crit rate, and because of the Longevous Disciple crit rate boosting, you may be able to get to 50% crit rate quite easily as long as your actual substats and main stats are kind of in line. As for Rutilant Arena, 2 set increases the wearer's crit rate by 8%, again very similar, but when the wearer's crit rate reaches 70%, which is a bit higher, 20% higher, or higher, the wearer's basic attack and skill damage increases by 20%. Now this one, you're losing a bit of value. Because Blade's skill does no damage, you're not getting that 20% skill damage, but you are getting that 20% basic attack damage, and his basic attack does seem to be a bit of a core part of his kit in terms of damage throughput. So a bit higher to reach the threshold of 70% crit rate, but if you are running Longevous Disciple, the 8% crit rate from actual Rutilant Arena, and a bit of min-maxing in terms of your substats, 70% crit rate seems pretty reachable, and then basic attack. So these are all kind of synonymous and synergistic builds. Longevous Disciple, I believe, is a core build, and then as long as you run Inert Cell Soto or Rutilant Arena, which again, these are my recommendations. There are others that may work attack boosting from one of the planar ornaments and whatnot. They will work, but these are my recommendations for a bit of utility and a bit of synergism, right? Is that the word, synergism? Let's use synergism, right? Now, going into a bit of a team composition one, don't take everything that you're seeing here as literal, don't take this as biblical. This is just a small outline of characters that you may run with. So let me explain. Blade being a DPS, I believe he's a main DPS, I don't think he's a sub DPS. And as for supports, well, I put Mrs. Yukong here all the time on all 3 examples because I believe that she's just right now is an incredibly powerful support. Crit rate damage boosting, crit rate and crit damage boosting, normal attack percent boosting. She does the whole 9 yards, being an imaginary character as well. She's a 10 out of 10 one, and you also get it for free in 1.2 as long as you do the Forgotten Hall, which is great. So I recommend her just because of those few things. But as for the main, or like kind of sub DPS slash support role, all of these work fine. Welt, Bronya, and Silverwolf, I think they all work fine. They all have their own kind of niche utility thing. Bronya's incredible crit damage boosting and attack boosting, Welt's slowness and being an imaginary, Silverwolf's application of weakness as well as her defense decreasing. All of them work absolutely fine. They're kind of the generic characters. Now, I wouldn't recommend What's-Her-Face, the other Fox girl, Tingyun. I wouldn't recommend her. I don't think she's going to synergize extremely well with Blade. Just because I just don't think she will. I just don't think she will. That's really going to be my justification. As for the healer role, I'm going to recommend a healer, and the reason I put 3 Natashas instead of maybe like a tank is because I don't think a tank is going to work with Blade. I think you're going to need a fair bit of healing for this team. Any team that has Blade in it, I feel like you're going to need a fair bit of healing. Now, regardless of what healer you have, all of them are going to be fine, but the best one is going to be Luocha. Based on the idea, because Blade attacks and heals by himself, having a healer that attacks and heals, and all the characters attacking heal themselves, I think Luocha is going to be the best combo for Blade, and that's also going to be another imaginary character. So if you're running the bottom line, by the way, that's going to be a wind character and 3 imaginary, so be very careful with that. But generally speaking, Luocha is going to be the best, but all healers are going to be absolutely fine. Bailu's got her hot healing, and then Natasha's got her active healing. All of them are going to be fine. Luocha is going to be the best. And that's just going to be the general outline for team composition. There's obviously going to be a bit more specific stuff that players are going to find out as the character comes out. Most likely some sort of niche thing where using 3 supports is going to give him 1 billion damage. But I'm not here to do that. These teams will work, or anything kind of small variants of these teams will work 100% of the time. And lastly, the last panel here, things to remember, right? As we're going into this, things to remember about the character. Well, I'm going to say this, that he's going to need a healer on the team. Maybe just a bit of an overstatement. Maybe a shielder could work because they'll mitigate the damage whilst Blade self-heals. But just for safety, I think a healer will work 100% more and 100% better than a tanker for Blade specifically built teams. That's something that I believe. Maybe it's going to be wrong. Who knows? We'll find out when he releases, but that's just what I believe. Another thing to remember, his skill does no damage. So skill percent damage means nothing. Remember that. You don't want to build into skill damage too much. If there's characters that have skill buffing and skill boosting, it's not going to do anything for Blade. You want basic attack or ultimate damage increase. That's that. And last one, it's a nice positive one. All light cones are practically good on him. The only one that I found that wasn't of any use is a Wolf Walk Time, which that's like 1 out of 11 light cones or 1 out of 10 light cones. I'm not sure how many destruction light cones there are, but 1 in 10 or so not being good is an absolutely fine ratio. All the other ones are absolutely fine, and players, you know, you guys probably most likely have at least one that's going to work on him. On the Fall of an Aeon being a 5-star, very easy to acquire. Having this character at pretty high power for light cone usage is pretty good. So overall, those are the only things to remember. I think generally speaking, he's going to be a great character. He's going to be the first win DPS that we get on you know, after Dan Heng, who is a 4-star. And so the first 5-star win DPS is going to be an absolute unit. Now, if he's going to be an absolute unit in the future, I have no idea. But because of the general style that Mihoyo has, and, you know, cross-referencing games, generally HP scaling characters in Mihoyo games tend to be very powerful and very, very overpowered, generally speaking. So he's probably going to have a quite a long lifespan of gameplay and usefulness in HSR. So that's this video done. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the Blade guide or analysis, if you want to call it, subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.